He was going to go back in his house. So I was like, but there's another joint up here with fresh caulking. And so I stood over the joint. I can't make this up, guys. I straddled it, and I said, right between my legs. This is Hands Like Hide, a podcast for men who know the weight of a long day, the ache of sore hands, and the pull for something more. Through raw stories, biblical truth, and practical wisdom, we explore recovery, growth, and how to become the man you were intended to be. Because every job teaches, and every story has the power to transform you and everyone you lead. Let's get to work. All right, cool. Welcome to Hands Like Hide, where every job teaches and every story transforms. I'm your host, Charlie Pfeiffer, and I thank you so much for joining me today. Whatever you're into, whatever you're working on, whatever struggles you have in your life, I hope that, and it's my prayer, that you'll find a breakthrough, that you'll find healing, and that one day you'll get to that point where you're like thriving and you're flourishing and you can pour into the lives of countless other guys in your family and you can lead them well. And that's what we talk about. We talk about recovery and growth and how to become the man you were intended to be. And part of that whole process is increasing our self-awareness. I talk about that a lot here on this channel. And what we want to talk about specifically today are blind spots. If you're not sure what you are going after, if you don't know what you don't know, if you're not aware of how you're treating other people, then, you can continue in self-destructive behaviors. You can continue feeling and being stuck. And that will, that in turn, you're never going to recover. You're never going to grow. You're never going to get to where you need to be. In fact, if you're not growing, you're coasting. And the only way to coast is downhill. And we all know we're continuing downhill trajectory. We all know where that will lead us. So I want to talk about some blind spots. And this kind of came to me a couple of weeks ago. And I've just been kind of thinking on this whole idea and mulling it over in my own head. And what triggered it for me was I was laying in bed one night, just kind of thinking, just kind of reflecting, and I remembered a situation that happened like 11 years ago. I was in the mood. I was in the mood to buy something really expensive. That's a fact. Sometimes I get into those moods, and maybe if you do too, impulsive spending, maybe. Yeah, I struggle with that. But I was looking to buy a tractor trailer. I wanted to buy a truck and kind of become an owner operator and get into that. And so I was talking to people, and I was looking into what it would take to buy a truck, who has a truck, where can I go to buy a truck, and so I was talking to a friend of mine in the area, and I was telling him, hey, I'm looking to buy a truck, and here's kind of what I'm looking for. And he said, oh, yeah, one of my neighbors up the road has a truck. He's, owned it for years, and he's wanting to retire, and he wants to get out of the business, and so he's trying to sell it. Do you have time now to go look at it? And I was like, yeah, I could go look at it. And he's like, all right, well, I'll call him. I'll call him right now, and I'll tell him that you're on your way. Perfect. So I jump on my pickup truck and I start headed up the road toward this guy's house. And as I'm getting close to his address, I'm watching the mailboxes, I'm counting the numbers. I'm like, oh yeah, right around the corner here. So I get around the corner and I see, just up the way off to the left, I see this Kenworth for sale. You know, big tall sleeper on it, nice looking truck. And but it wasn't what I was looking for. That's, I was looking for more of like a low sleeper top or a flat top. And as I'm getting closer and closer to this guy's house, I see this guy walking across his front yard, walking across his driveway, walking to the truck. He's expecting me to arrive any minute. And I looked at this truck and I was like, that's not what I'm looking for. And I don't want to waste his time. I just kept right on driving. I didn't even stop. I just kept right on driving. And life went on, and life does what life does. And here we are 11 years later. So here I am laying in bed and I'm thinking about this scenario. And I believe God kind of brought this to my mind to just kind of help me understand, the effect that I have on people or, the way my actions and behaviors, can really kind of mess somebody else up. And I thought about this and I'm like, and it just hit me. Here I am. This is a blind spot, it's a huge blind spot that I held for like 11 years. Here I am driving down the road. There's a guy walking across his driveway and he's waiting for me. he was told someone's coming to look at your truck. I'm sure he felt some excitement around that. He's wanting to sell his vehicle. There's a guy looking to buy a truck. He's on his way. If you've ever tried to sell something, especially like a big ticket item, and someone's coming to look at it, you feel a sense of like, I hope this deal goes through because, you're maybe you have some other bills you want to pay. Maybe you're interested in just getting rid of whatever it is, and you're looking to make a deal, and you're looking to make a sell. And so there's some energy that you have to expend to go through with this. And so I'm sure this guy was no different than that, right? So he's walking across his driveway. He sees a blue pickup truck drive by, slow down a little bit, and then just speed up and keep going. And here I am 11 years later wondering, my excuse at that day was I don't want to waste his time. That's not what I'm looking for. Well, how long did he stand there waiting for me? That's what I want to know, right? This is what hit me the other night. How long did he stand there waiting for me? I don't know. So how much energy did he end up having to spend standing there waiting for me? And then, you know, did that create frustration and irritation in him? This guy was a no-show. Now, let's take this one step further. Okay? A mutual friend of ours is the one who told me where this truck is for sale, right? Did he call our mutual friend and say, "Hey, didn't you say somebody was coming right up?" The guy said, "Well, yeah, he said he was going right there." Well, he never showed up. Really? He never showed up? No, he never showed up. All right, I'm imagining this conversation in my mind, and I'm thinking to myself, well, holy crap. Like, my one action years and years and years ago to not show up and not do something that I said, yeah, I'll go do, led to a lot of discomfort and uncomfortable situations, and ultimately, like in other people, right? And then ultimately, it hurt my own view, right? My own reputation and the way people viewed me, the type of person, the type of man that I was. I very, 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 very quickly became somebody who you can't trust his word. And in my mutual friend, I don't want to get into some mind reading here, but I can imagine that there was a sense of like disappointment. Like, I wonder why he didn't show up, right? And then just life moves right on. So here I am laying in bed and I'm just kind of reflecting on this whole situation. And I just kind of said to my wife, I said, "You'll never believe what I just kind of just thought of." And I just kind of shared it with her. And I just like how bad I felt in that moment. Some shame kind of came up for me in that moment, some sadness, some regret. It would have been nothing for me to just whip into the guy's driveway, look at his truck, thank him so much for his time, and just tell him, like, I'm looking for something that has, a lower sleeper. And you never know where that could have led, right? I mean, he could have said, "Well, I got a buddy that's got a flat top, Peterbilt," which is what I was looking for. And you never know where that could have led, right? But it was just like my own ignorance and my own selfishness and that huge blind spot, that led me to make these decisions and then to be oblivious to the effects of these decisions. Um, James Clear, he's the author of Atomic Habits. He has this quote that just, I think it's powerful and it fits with this. It says, "If lack of self-awareness is the poison, then reflection and review is the antidote." Reflection and review takes intentionality. It takes a willingness to sit down with a pen and paper, or willingness to sit down with a trusted friend, or if you're married, the best thing I can tell you to do is go talk to your wife. You want to know how you're doing. You want to know how you're affecting people. You want to know if you have any blind spots that are going on in your life, behaving in a way, you've got some attitudes that you're oblivious to how they're affecting those around you. Just go talk to your wife, or more, go talk to your kids because they'll tell you. If they don't tell you in words, they're going to tell you in actions and behaviors. If you get home from work and you find your family beginning to avoid you, that's a huge sign. I'll never forget this day. I came home from work. We have a front door to our house, and then we have a side door. It's like a slider door, like a patio door, right? Well, I realized over the course of several weeks, just kind of paid attention to things that are going on. When I would get home from work and I get out of my truck and I'm walking across the front yard to the front door, my wife would walk out the side door of the house and then head to the barn. And I didn't really think anything of it until I started realizing that this was something that was happening like It was dependable, it was predictable, it was consistent. Like I'd get home from work and I get out of my truck and walk to the front door, and my wife would walk out the side door and head to the barn. Now, how do you interpret that? How would you interpret that? Would you get mad? Would you get frustrated? Or would you approach this with curiosity and you would say, I wonder what my wife's actions in this moment are communicating to me, right? It's revealing something like a huge blind spot that's going on, right? And so I just kind of walked up to her once I kind of realized what's going on. I said, do you realize that this is what happens when you do this? And she was like, actually, I didn't really thought about it. It was a blind spot for her. Wow, that's interesting. And so we just had this conversation about it, and it came out that, due to my addiction and the effects of my addiction and what it has caused, what it's done to my marriage and my relationships with my children, my son, that she would feel safe and secure all day and fine. And then I would get home from work, she'd hear my truck driving up the driveway, and she'd start getting triggered. She'd start feel hyper vigilant. She'd be worried. She'd start feeling stressed out. And then when I would get out of the truck and start walking to the house, she'd go out the side door because my presence was, in essence, she was avoiding it to try to continue feeling safe. Now, you want to talk about a gut punch to someone who's trying to like go through the healing process. But those types of revelations are crucial to helping you understand where your blind spots are and what you need to change to grow and to heal and whatever that looks like for you. Billy Strings, the philosopher, I call him philosopher, the musician, songwriter, bluegrass extraordinaire, Billy Strings. I think he encompasses this in one of his songs. He says, "There's a reason your troubles exist. There's a reason your troubles exist. And if you can't figure out why you're having troubles, chances are you have this huge blind spot that you're unaware of. You're unaware of. So I want to challenge you moving forward for this upcoming week. Reflection and review is the antidote to blind spots. Get in with pen and paper, start doing some journaling, start doing some asking some people questions, your spouse, your kids, your best friends. If you have a coach or a mentor that can help you kind of work through this and start shedding light on your behaviors and in your blind spots so that you can stop making a mess everywhere you go and everything that you do. A couple of weeks ago, I had the opportunity to restore a brick sidewalk for an older home in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. A historical place. It was a really awesome project, and we were reaching the end of this job, and I was putting in the Sikaflex caulking in the expansion joints of the brick sidewalk, and it was right about dark, and we are just about finished up. And the homeowner is an older gentleman. He couldn't walk too good. He couldn't see too good. And he didn't even ask, like, he didn't ask if he could walk on the sidewalk. He knew I was working on it. I'd been there all day long. And he just, he just walked out. And wouldn't you know it, like we told him, there's fresh caulking right here. Don't step right there. He said, okay. And he stepped over it and everything was fine. Well, didn't you know it? He stepped in another joint that we told him there's another joint right here. Don't step in this. And he stepped right in it. And he got caulking over his asphalt driveway. And I was like, you gotta be kidding me. And so we finished talking things over. He paid me, and then he was going to go back in his house. So I was like, but there's another joint up here with fresh caulking. And so I stood over the joint. I can't make this up, guys. I straddled it and I said, right between my legs is fresh caulking. Don't step there. He's like, okay, okay, no problem. And he shuffled along. He stepped over it with his front foot, and then he stepped right in it with his back foot as he walked. And he just like, and I was like, oh, you stepped in it. And he was like, oh, I'm so sorry. And he just like, he didn't stop. He kept walking across the sidewalk, just like footprints of this super high quality, Sikaflex expansion joint caulking. And he just, and oh man, I was so mad. I was so mad. You try to do a good job for people, and then somebody else kind of screws, especially if it's like the homeowner or the customer screws it up for you. It's like, oh man, I know stories of guys that, fresh concrete sidewalk, and people walk right out and they walk right in it, like, and you're just like, are you kidding? Like, how could you not see what's going on here? And like, why would you do that? Well, that's what blind spots do. Like, that's when you have blind spots, when I have blind spots, that's what other people, right, who are getting affected by us, that's their reaction to this. Like, how could you not see how this could cause a problem? Like, how could you not see how this would be upsetting to somebody? And you're going, like, I don't know how it could be upsetting. I don't know. I didn't think I was hurting anybody by my actions, right? I wasn't hurting anybody else. Like, that's a common excuse that you would hear. Maybe you've made it. I know I've made it a whole bunch of times. And yeah, that's what happens with blind spots. When you have big blind spots in your life, it creates a mess. It frustrates and hurts other people, and ultimately, like, it damages your character. So, review and self-reflection is the antidote for this. Psalms chapter 4, verse 4, to wrap this up in closing, says, "Tremble and do not sin. Meditate in your heart upon your bed and be still." And I think that's just really interesting. I love that verse because that's what happened a few weeks ago when I was laying in bed and I was still and I was quiet and I was in my heart going through reflection and review. And God brought to me this situation that happened 11 years ago. It was a huge blind spot. And since then I've able to have some good conversations about it, to work through some stuff with my wife around these things and just get, become more aware and have a deeper understanding of the effect that I'm having on people. So that's what I challenge you to do today. This week, whatever you're into, while you're working, whatever job you're into, whatever customers you're working with, or when you get home from work, start observing how your family, how your wife relates with you, reacts with you. Because chances are, if people don't feel safe enough or don't have the words to be able to tell you, here's what's going on, again, then start becoming aware of their actions and their behaviors. What does that tell you, right? Um, I can't remember who said this, but who you are is so loud that I can't hear what you say, right? Who you are is so loud that I can't hear what you say. There's some truth in that. Look for people's actions and behaviors because sometimes that right there will give you the clue, will give you the evidence that you need to say, like, hey, there's something going on in my life that I'm unaware of, and start working on some reflection and review. If you need to connect with somebody to help you through this process, I'm available. You can check me out on Instagram, Hands Like Hyde on Instagram, or www.reframedmentoring.com. You can reach out to me there. And if you have any questions, there's a book me page on there. We can set up a calendar call. I'm happy to sit down with you and go through some things, or just shoot a comment wherever you listen to this podcast. If you have a question or if you want to reach out, you can connect with me there. Again, Hands Like Hyde. I'm Charlie Pfeiffer. Work hard this week. Work hard this week, but take care of your hands. You work with your hands. Hey, there's no shame in using some O'Keeffe's. You know what I'm saying? Like, watch the cracks. We're getting into the winter now. You get some cracks in the ends of your fingers and you can't button your pants, and that hurts. Love you guys. Be good.